Hey everyone, this is offline-enabled mobile apps with Ionic and Couchbase Light. My name is Matt Netko. I'm head of product and solutions marketing at Ionic, and you can find me online, reach out to chat on Twitter and anywhere the internet is found. So please say hi. We've got an action-packed agenda for today, so let's get right into it. Basically, we're going to talk about the application backlog that so many enterprise teams get bogged down with, all of the challenges, shipping apps across all different platforms. And we're going to look at the ways that Ionic and Couchbase can help you tackle that app backlog. And one of the main core focuses today is using your web development team to do so in new ways that haven't been done before, alongside using Ionic's technology and Couchbase Light. And we'll have a live demo and time for Q&A at the end. So let's get right into it. So if you're working as part of a larger enterprise team, you know what this situation is all about, right? You across the business side as well as your customers, you have this growing application backlog of internal and customer-facing applications that you and your software development teams, your IT teams have to get through. And the challenge with this is because why they build up is, besides of course just general technology and development being all the more complex as time goes on, but it goes beyond that. It really comes down to your customers wanting multi-platform experiences, not just applications, right? Not just apps for iOS and Android. They want to be able to use your software and technology wherever they go throughout the world, right? Working at home on their desktop computer, maybe leveraging it on an iPad, on the train, on the ride home, and on their mobile device, of course, as they move throughout the world. However, this is easier said than done because that means that you have to build apps that run on the web, on mobile, on desktop, maybe embedded devices, et cetera, et cetera. And on top of that, because we're moving throughout the world and we are not just sitting statically at a desk all day, they have to be offline enabled, right? And that brings about so many different challenges. Even with internet access increasing around the world and speeds just being absolutely accessible very, very fast, right? That's still a challenge. And unfortunately, taking the time and finding the expertise to roll your own offline capabilities is really difficult, right? You have all these different scenarios to think about, and between offline and coming back online, back and forth, and so much more. So what do we do about these scenarios, right? How do we build these great apps? Well, of course, we know that Couchbase Light provides the offline first experiences that we need. All of their product from the ground up is built to think about those scenarios and provide world-class solutions for us. Additionally, you have multi-platform support, such as running on mobile, desktop, and embedded devices. So you get most of the platforms that you need right out of the box with their embedded NoSQL database, right? In addition to that, all the complex scenarios and features that they've implemented are peer-to-peer syncing, such as when these devices come back online and how do they sync between each other and kind of manage and do that replication and whatnot. In addition, there's on-device failover and so much more, making sure that data is backed up and never lost. And of course, because this is so critical today and you're exchanging data between different devices and the cloud, they have best-in-class security all thought out for you. So that covers that a lot of the offline capabilities. However, there's some challenges that we've seen on the Ionic side working with enterprise teams, right? And depending on what technology you pick, this might be something that you run into, right? So when you're looking at native iOS and Android, where you get really great performance and absolute full control over what those apps and experiences look like, they're great. But however, because of the way that they work, you have separate code bases because you're building in different programming languages, SDKs, and tools and languages for those specific platforms. So the result there is you have 2 or more code bases to maintain, and your development velocity is going to be much slower because you have to kind of work in tandem and ship and release on the same schedule. And oftentimes teams get out of sync with that, right? Now, there's also the ability with Couchbase to work with more hybrid or cross-platform solutions like Cordova and React Native. So we, of course, are big fans of those. of that entire approach, as you'll see. The challenge here, though, is you still might need native mobile developers to get in the weeds and do a lot of configuration on the Couchbase side. So that can, of course, give you more control, but you're going to need an expanded team and also might run into those same velocity concerns of shipping and getting through your app backlog quickly. And then finally, there is a Xamarin approach that you can use with Couchbase. But in this case, with them, you need .NET and C# skills. You may or may not be staffed for that. And that's an entirely different skill set than web or mobile, embedded type of programmer. So your team, to support all these, really to support all these platforms, you're looking at a sizable cost investment and developer team size. So how do we build cross-platform offline-enabled apps at scale, right? How do we tackle this and get really the best of all these worlds and really enable ourselves to tackle that app backlog? Well, we can tap into our web development teams. Now, why would we want to do that, right? Well, I know that all of you watching this have great web development teams today because you have websites, right? You probably have lots of internal web applications, maybe some external based ones too that are customer facing. So they're used to building all different types of services and experiences for your customers. And they have that knowledge with responsive design and similar capabilities to build apps that run on all different types of screen sizes. So they're already primed to build multi-platform type applications, right? And additionally, when you think about the investment in web technology in a larger picture standpoint as a business, you can't go wrong with web tech because it's the most widely used technology stack today. In fact, there's 10x more web devs than native devs. So when you look at hiring and finding talent, it's just so much easier and so much more cost effective to find really great web developers. And when we look at what new programmers and new folks learning programming start with, more than likely it's going to be web technology and building with your tools of the web browsers and things like that. Additionally, they don't have to be siloed teams that are working independently building these apps. They can partner with your native mobile dev team. So there's lots of opportunities to collaborate and build great experiences together. So you can really get the most of your teams partnering together there. So why would we pair up web development with Couchbase Light? Up till now, that hasn't really been a core use case, right? Well, I would argue that for web developers, learning Couchbase Light is really simple based on a bunch of factors. To start off, I think the most clear thing is it's based on NoSQL. So, JavaScript and JSON type data and documents, that's exactly what web developers use and are familiar with day to day, right? So I would argue it's far more familiar than SQL, which can be very archaic, very brittle to read and write from whether it's a web or mobile perspective. And so it's just a natural extension to their capabilities. Additionally, the type of databases that you work with, either document databases, which are based on JSON effectively of how they're stored, or key value databases, this is all the data structures that web developers use day to day. They really are. And when we're working with return data from the result of queries from a Couchbase Lite query, you have some similar SQL aspects of the selecting data and manipulating it, ordering it, and things like that. And that structure is very friendly. So even if they're not familiar with NoSQL or SQL in the past, they can easily read that code and understand it. So even speaking for myself, when I was starting to work with Couchbase Lite, I found it, as a beginner, very easy to get up to speed quickly. So that's something that's a huge part of your investment. And of course, when we're working with data in our result sets of queries, you're mostly able to work with JavaScript arrays and, again, similar data structures that are not proprietary to Couchbase Lite by any means. They're all just built into the browser and the tools and techniques that web developers use day to day. All right, so how can we enable web developers to use Couchbase Lite? Well, this is where Ionic comes in. So at Ionic, we're a company that's entirely dedicated to web development and enabling web developers to bring their skills to mobile, desktop, and beyond. So as a result, we take a web-first approach to app development. So all of our technology is focused on web, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Nothing proprietary, just using the standard building blocks of the web to build really great looking and performing apps. And we've been around for a number of years now, many, many years. And as a result, we've become the leading cross-platform developer solution. Because again, we're one of the few companies that actually is dedicated to this in its entirety and empowering web developers to do really great things. As a result, we've got over 15% of apps in the app stores today that are powered by Ionic's technology, and hundreds of thousands of apps that are used in internal business use cases and beyond. So many, many more beyond just the public app stores. As a result, we've worked with over 5 million developers worldwide that use and love our technology. And as a result of being around and building with the web, we found a number of partners, and a lot of these logos you'll recognize, right? And this is how we've been able to become a leader in enterprise app development. Our technology is industry and platform agnostic, so you're going to see logos here across all different types of industries, because building for the web is not specific to any one of those. It works great no matter where you're working in and what type of use cases you're targeting. So let's take a look quickly at what Ionic apps actually are, what they're made up of. And the best way to think about this is that they are native apps powered by web technologies. So what we do is we're still building native applications, but under the hood, they look a little different than your traditional native apps on iOS and Android. So we build our user interfaces, the screens, the interactivity that your users interact with on the device, with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so these are, again, the building blocks of the web, nothing specific to us. And then you might pair up with a web framework like Angular, React, Vue, and really any framework works with Ionic in our tech. So all those that are very popular with developers. And then the magic comes in because we have a web application that we need to embed on a mobile device. So how do we do that? Well, we use native runtime technology to wrap that web app in a native app shell. And that allows us to deploy it on your device as a native app, just like a traditional native app. So your end users don't know the difference and they still get a great app experience. How that works is the web apps run within that native app shell. And within a web view control, which is, think of that as like an embedded web browser. And again, allows us to do all kinds of things and build really great apps. And there's no lack of functionality that can't be accessed, including features, native device features like the camera, Bluetooth, geolocation. All of those things are open to our app. So there's nothing you can't build with Ionic's app technology. We access those via plugins, which are essentially, think of that like Couchbase Lite's extension functionality, where we're adding little bits of functionality that we want to tap into. To write those, we still have to write those in native code, but all of those are typically accessible in open source land, available for free, or Ionic has some paid enterprise add-on solutions we'll talk about. But effectively, you can build an entire app end-to-end for free and open source. So yeah, that's how Ionic works. And when we think about how all these technologies might pair together with the Ionic app platform, we have three pieces of the puzzle here. We've got Ionic, which is our open source, free 100+ UI component toolkit. So this is all of your standard controls like buttons and forms and cards and other kind of components that you use to build really awesome mobile apps and desktop apps. These include, as we'll see, animations and gestures that make them look and feel like native mobile apps. They really do. And to deploy those apps as mobile or desktop apps, we use our tool called Capacitor to bundle those up in that native app shell technology and deploy them to the app stores. We'll see how that looks like in a second. And then finally, to cover that offline first functionality from that with an embedded NoSQL database, we turn to Couchbase Light. So all three of those together are a complete superpower. And additionally, when we're building for the web and we want to use Couchbase Lite, Ionic has a new Couchbase Lite integration that helps you build secure, high-performance, offline-enabled apps. So it's our official solution for the hybrid and web-native perspective of building apps and approach. And we support 2 different runtimes, Cordova, if you've used that, as well as Capacitor. So all different types of that, embracing the way we build with web technology and deploying for mobile. We support iOS, Android, and native Windows. That's not Electron, it's native Windows code. So you can deploy across those 3 platforms. And because this is something that we're entirely focused on, and we have a thriving business that's backed by all this, you get world-class support, advisory, and bug fixes, new updates all the time, all put out by our team. So we have just a rock-solid set of mobile experts and team members that keep these integrations up to date. And specifically, we built this integration to keep our web developer base in mind. So again, if you're going to leverage your web developers, we want to give them a world-class experience. And part of my favorite aspect of this is that you really need minimal knowledge of Couchbase Lite, because again, that's a little bit of just how web development works and the approachability there. But it's also kudos to Couchbase Lite, because again, it's very easy to get started, I would argue, as a web developer. And as a result, with our solution, compared to Cordova or React Native, we cover all of the native development side. All of that part of the solution is built for you. So as a web developer, you just access the JavaScript interfaces and all the technology that you're used to. So no native development experience is required. You don't have to get into the native weeds at all. And as a result, you can tackle your app backlog faster and delight your users even more by building one app with one code base that runs on mobile and Windows. So lots of great things there. So let's take a look here at a demo, and we can kind of show off Ionic, Capacitor, and Couchbase Lite. So let's look at that. I've got a hotel booking travel type app, and we'll kind of go through the pieces now. You can see it's open source, so check out that on GitHub. You can check out the full demo and run it for yourself. Let's pop out here. Okay. So on the left here, I have Visual Studio Code with the demo app open. And on the right, I have my Pixel 3 device, which is a real Android device connected to my PC. So we're running the actual native mobile app, and we're going to walk through the functionality and things like that. So the first thing to point out is this is an Angular app. I just happened to pick Angular, but again, we support React, Vue, and really vanilla JavaScript, any type of framework that you want. That's what's great about building for the web is we can use the best tools that you're most comfortable with. And what's great about Ionic is you don't really learn it per se. You reference how to use the different components. So because all of this is just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So as you can see here on the right, we've got a simple hotel searching experience with a full list of different hotels with their address and phone number. And then we have the ability to bookmark them and then just filter by all bookmarks. So we're going to walk through each piece of that functionality. But first with the UI. So what's really great is you'll notice this is just HTML. So again, nothing proprietary to Ionic. And all the components are prefaced with Ion. So we have title, search bar, lists, etc. And you'll notice the hotel title is here, right? And something more interesting is our search bar and this whole list experience. So to get a fully functional search bar component, which looks and feels natively mobile, this is Android, right? We easily just drop this in with one line of code to have a full reactive search bar experience up here. And then this list of data, we are basically looping through our array of hotels that we've retrieved from Couchbase Lite, as we'll see in a second, and displaying them on the screen with an Ion item. And it just represents a container, each row of data that we can then format to look however we'd like. In this case, I'm just using simple paragraph and header tags to display the name, address, and phone number. And then I'm using an icon control for the bookmark. So we have a set of iconography, thousands of icons that you can use in your apps too. So we have a bunch of those, like the search icon here, the hotel marker for a tab, and more. So that's just the start of it. And then what we'll kind of look at let's see the search experience next. So underneath the hood here, in some of the logic, what I'm doing is when the application loads, I'm retrieving my hotels to display with a call to database service.getHotels. And so let's look into how that functionality actually works, okay? So we go back up. What I'm doing is I've wrapped, as is a development best practice, I've wrapped the entire Couchbase Lite integration inside of a service class. I'm just simply calling it database service. And that way we've isolated it for unit testing, integration testing, and whatnot. And all of that functionality is easy to ration through and explain. So what we're doing here is importing a bunch of different fields from the Ionic Enterprise Couchbase Lite integration. And you'll notice that all of the API we've kept basically the same as other Couchbase Lite integrations that you may have worked with, like the native iOS and Android based components or React Native, basically all the other SDKs. So it'll be very familiar for anyone that, whether you've used Couchbase Lite or not. And let's look at how we retrieve our hotels, right? So first we want to initialize the database. This is where it gets really fun, and then get our hotel list out of the Couchbase Lite database. So in our initialized database, we are going to preload on iOS, Android, and Windows. We're going to load up the Couchbase Lite travel database that Couchbase uses in a lot of their tutorials. So if you've ever gone through that, this is the same one that I'm using here. That contains all this hotel data. There's thousands of records. It's a really great data set to work with, and especially when you're learning Couchbase Lite. So what I'm doing here, and this is as a brief aside, something cool we can do with Capacitor. So Capacitor, as I mentioned, is that native runtime tool that has tooling that allows us to take this web app and bundle it into the native mobile app. Well, it also has a bunch of helper APIs as well as core APIs that allow you to tap into the native functionality like camera, Bluetooth, and geolocation. Now, we're not showing off any of that today, but that's part of the Capacitor API that we're importing here from Capacitor Core. But here's one we are going to use the file system to actually access that Couchbase Lite database file that's embedded in the application itself. So what we're doing here, though, is I'm actually checking to say, hey, is this a native platform? So iOS or Android or Windows. And if it is, we're going to load that Couchbase Lite database because it doesn't run on the web currently. But if it's not, and again, this is more of an aside, I'm just loading some static hotel data. So I still have that optionality. So we can do some kind of cool branching logic to kind of fill in some of that cross-platform functionality. Again, all from one code base. So a lot of this will look familiar. We're basically looking for our database to see if that travel sample exists already, if we've already bootstrapped it in the past. But if this is the first time we're running the app, we need to parse and load that Couchbase Lite database, right? So we're using the file system API to get the path to that database, that tutorial, travel, and hotel one, that sample, and then using Couchbase Lite's copy function to bring that into our database object here. And if it already has been loaded up, that's fine. We'll just use that database. This is only ran one time. Additionally, we support encryption, so we can set an encryption key as part of the database configuration. Of course, this is just for demo purposes that we're hard coding it. In a real app, you'd want to retrieve that from secure storage and other mechanisms, maybe be behind an API per user. So this is just for demo purposes that we can set that. Next, we want to retrieve the whole hotel list. And you'll notice, again, this is all similar APIs if you used Couchbase Lite with other tools and tech. Very easy to recognize what this is. We're basically retrieving the hotel type doc types, right, from our database with simple queries. We're just selecting everything, retrieving all the hotels to display here, getting those results. And then we're also storing the bookmark hotels in a separate mutable document within the same database. So that's we're basically retrieving both of those and then toggling as we determine whether or not to highlight these as bookmarked already, so I can tap on those, right? That's going to field a bookmark Boolean, and we can kind of look through that bookmark list and say, oh, is that ID included in there? Let's toggle it. So again, nothing specific to Ionic, but all Couchbase based. So that displays, that's basically how we're displaying our list there. Next, we are able to search. So let's take a look at what that is. I'm going to deselect these and say we want to find all spas, right? I definitely could use a vacation. So I'm going to look for spas, not just a regular hotel. And so we've pulled up 3 results here, and you notice that it instantaneously searches. So this is a combination of Ionic's performance along with Couchbase Lite that I love. And what I'm doing is passing in that query of spa in this case into Couchbase Lite, looking for, I'm just happen to look for the hotel name, and basically ordering them by ascending, putting them in ascending order. So very straightforward, and basically building up a list of the filtered hotels that we want to display on the device, right? So that's really straightforward, just using simple querying. Where it gets kind of cool is the bookmark hotel functionality. So let's say I found my spa and I like these 2, so I can toggle those, right? And then if I come back and clear this out, let's close that. You can see if we scroll down here, we've got both of them bookmarked, right? And a lot of them are not. So what happened when I clicked on the bookmark, right? Well, first we want to get that bookmark document. We're just using one document that is going to have an array of bookmark IDs. So when we click on those, it's going to put this hotel, this one, into that array. And so we know how to designate those. So when we go down here, we're retrieving that bookmark document. And of course, if it doesn't exist, then we're going to create it. Very simple, right? We're setting the array. We're just going to call it hotels, new up a new array, and then save it to the database. But otherwise, we're going to retrieve that document and make it a mutable document based on that particular ID of book type bookmark hotels, right? So that's simple. And then what happens is we retrieve that bookmark document and then parse out that array, that hotels array, and we're going to want to add that hotel ID that we just clicked on into that array. And then, of course, reset the hotel array before we save that document so that the entire list is cached. So that's really cool. We've implemented all these different features really simply with just a handful of Couchbase Lite queries that are very similar and therefore, I would argue, very easy to work with. The final thing that we're doing is actually filtering by bookmarks. So if I tap on this, I'm only showing the bookmarks that I've done. In this case, we could do a bunch of different approaches. In this case, I am just, because these bookmarks are loaded in memory, I'm just using Angular to filter those down, using a toggle bookmarks flag up here. And basically we're saying, give me all the hotels where bookmarked is true, right? And then we're setting those filtered hotels to be displayed by that. So you can also, if we had, we can also implement this with Couchbase Lite, of course, to search in real time. In this case, I'm just kind of making that a toggle where we can filter those out. So all in all, we've built an entire Couchbase Lite powered experience with a great looking mobile app built with Ionic framework components all across the UI here, and then deploying it with Capacitor to the device, my Android device here. All right. So to kind of wrap up, that was our demo again. Check out the code. It's open source. You can run it for yourself and kind of look at the internals of everything I showed. So again, like why, kind of summarize up, why Ionic and Couchbase? Well, again, we can, as you've seen, we can leverage your web development team to just simply crush your application backlog. Get through all of those applications you've been wanting to build that your business and users have been asking you about. And because of using Ionic's technology to really quickly build great looking UIs that look beautiful and perform really well, paired with Couchbase Lite's technology, you can focus on your unique business value. You don't have to reinvent the wheel of building great slick looking animations and UIs, as well as the offline capabilities in the backend and server side. You can use Couchbase Lite for that. So the other aspect that's really important here is, because this is all that we do at Ionic, focused on and empowering web developers to build cool apps, it's backed by Ionic's world-class support and services. So you get advisory, support, and all different types of lines into our team for assistance. And then, of course, includes ongoing bug fixes, support for new versions of iOS and Android, all those kind of headaches that your teams don't want to be bogged down with. They just want to build really cool apps and just focus on what they're doing day to day, which is plenty. And that really helps empower them to build really cool business apps for you and your company. So awesome. Now we're going to switch over to some Q&A. So I'd love to hear from you. And again, if you want to check out our Couchbase Lite integration more from Ionic, please do at ionic.io/integrations/Couchbase Lite. And again, my name is Matt Netko for Ionic. Thank you so much.